Here we go, dudes and girls. The beginner phase is done, and now it's on to the strength stage. And this is gonna be full body. Since it is full body, we're gonna be doing some full body warm up to make sure we're ready, we're limber, and ready to hit some heavy ass weight. The first exercise is gonna be the Zercher Squat. So now the Zercher Squat is not a very common exercise, but one that I love, particularly because it's not only working the lower body, it's also working the upper body too. The back is really going to have to be engaged throughout the movement, as well as the biceps in an isometric hold to really hold that barbell close to the body. And of course, the lower body is going to be doing a lot of the pressing, so you get a lot of glutes, you get a lot of quad activation with a little bit of hamstring. And essentially, it's somewhat simple to learn because basically you're just grasping the barbell with the crook of your arms here, just like so in a comfortable position. Make sure it's equal on both sides. And I like to do it in the rack here. It's a lot easier to grab and kind of make sure you're in the proper positioning. And once you kind of have that in the inner elbows there, you're going to bring your hands together and really squeeze that bar close to your body as much as you can. It's really going to be hitting about the sternum area. Once you have that, you're going to unrack it. It should feel real stable, just like so. And you're going to step back from the rack. You're going to have a pretty decently wide stance, outside shoulder width, so that way when you squat down, you're going to have your elbows in about inner thigh area. So you're going to keep that upright torso. You're going to squat down. As you can see, my elbows are touching my inner thighs, and my torso is pretty much upright, chest up, neutral chin, and then you're going to be pushing up the top position just like so. So very simple, but very effective. And we're going to be starting off with 2 warm-up sets with decently light weight to really feel out the exercise. They get the muscles that much more warmed up and ready for that really heavy weight. And then we're going to start with the working sets, which is going to be 3 sets of 5 repetitions. Now warm-ups will typically be around 10 to 12 repetitions. So you don't want to completely fatigue the muscle, you're just warming it up. So don't go too heavy with the warm-ups. Take it light, really get your form down, the function. Make sure you're feeling it in the correct muscles that you're really trying to work. And then once those warm-up sets are done, that's when you can jump into weight and you'll be ready for it. So if you're unsure of what weight you should start with, you either can really feel it out to see where you should push yourself, or there are calculators out there where you can perform the weight for maybe 10, 15 reps, and then you can calculate what weight would be at your 85%, 90%, so on, of 1 rep max. So that way you have a really good idea of where to start. So you don't have to take all that time, but sometimes I like to feel it out a little bit more. It feels a bit more natural because those calculators sometimes be inaccurate. So you're gonna have to feel it out anyways, but also there's a lot of variables that come into play on how much weight you can lift, either be your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration. So just be wary of that, and don't be too disappointed where you come in one week, you can lift very heavy, the next week you can't. Just make sure you're tracking your progress, and maybe even making notes on what happened the night before, the day before, the week of maybe you have extra stress from work. So there's a lot of variables that come into play when exercising, when putting a lot of weight on these lifts, is that you're not always going to be 100%. Oh, that's it. That was the 3rd set. That's the one good thing about doing something like this, is that 3 sets seem to go fairly quickly, even though the rest times are 2 minutes plus to really get all your energy back. But you're already moving on to the next exercise. So mentally, it sometimes can be easier in that way, knowing that you don't have another 2+ sets or whatever to go. So we are moving on to the next one, which is going to be the prone row. As you can see, the bench is elevated quite a bit, because what you're going to be doing is lying in the prone position here, grasping the barbell, and it's essentially barbell rows, but now the movement is very isolated. There's no work in the lower back to help stabilize you in the bent over position when your own legs are giving you the base of support. Now you have a bench for the base of support. The one drawback on this is it can put a lot of pressure on your diaphragm, so it can make it be a little bit harder to get your breaths in, so you got to time them correctly. But other than that, we're going to get in position. You're going to start off with a couple warm-up sets and then go heavy for the 5 repetitions. That's good. That feels nice. As you can see, really trying to retract the shoulder blades as you bring that weight to the top position. The top position is essentially just the bottom of the bench, as you can hear it clanging at the bottom there. And what you want to do is really try to hit that full range of motion by tapping the bench, slight hold, and let it down to the bottom position. And you want the bench high enough where once in the bottom position, there's still tension on the back. You don't have to completely straighten your arms, leave a little tension there, and then that way you're rolling it again. But there's gonna be protraction and retraction in the shoulder to really help engage as much of the back as possible during the duration of all the repetitions. It's definitely a very difficult one because the motion is now very isolated in comparison to a regular bent over row, where you can sometimes get a little help from your lower body. So you might want to go take it a little bit lighter on this at first to get the feeling of it, and then slowly work up and wait from there once you get more comfortable with it. But again, it's probably going to be lighter than your standard bent over row just because it is a lot stricter. Ooh, that was the last set of the prone rows. Now we're going to be moving on to the floor press. Oh yeah, the floor press. Now this is really the beginning evolution of the bench press. Really all started with the floor press, so it's kind of cool throwing it back old school like this. But it's really, as you can see, limiting the range of motion slightly. You're focusing more on the upper half movement of a bench press. You're not bringing your elbows all the way down because you can't. You can only really touch them at the base of the floor there, or the back of your arms on the floor. So you're pretty much bringing it down nice and slow, touching the back of your arms to the floor and then pressing up from there. And what one advantage to a floor press is you really feel very stable when doing it because you have a large platform to press against, and it can feel a little bit more comfortable for some people to do something like this, but you still have to concentrate on a few of the key positions that you would on a normal bench press, which is going to be retracting the scapula, of course, bringing the barbell down more to the sternum area, and your points of contact will be your upper back and also your hips as well. And one thing to remember in this exercise is that keep your legs straight. You can either cross them or leave them straight on the floor, but what you don't want to do is bend them to have your feet flat on the floor, because what happens is you'll tend to want to push with your feet. It'll raise your hips and it'll start kind of destroying the exercise. You won't get the full benefit. Some of the advantages of this exercise is really helping you get strength in that upper portion of the bench press. Some people will have a problem in going from this position to lockout. You know, they can get it down and they can start pressing it up, but they'll kind of hit that sticking point within that lift, and going from this to this can be very difficult, so the floor press can really help in that. So it can transfer over once you start introducing bench presses in again. You'll feel a lot more stronger in that positioning from midpoint to pretty much the lockout area. So we are done with the floor press, and the next exercise and the last big compound is going to be the Z press. Now this is really focusing on the shoulder development, and we're really just doing this in the seated position, so it's a bit different, and much like the prone row and the floor press is a bit unconventional, where it's kind of straying away from the standard exercise that you might be used to. So of course a typical press, a shoulder press, overhead press, can be in a standing position, and just pressing the weight straight up from there. With this one, it's going to be the seated position, and a few things you want to consider when performing this is you're going to be sitting back on your hamstrings in the seated position to get that proper positioning and also a nice upright torso. To make it that much harder because there's really going to be no lower body movement. It's really just going to be all in the core to stabilize that position, and of course all in the shoulders as well. Oh yeah, there we go. That was the last 5 repetitions of this exercise. Now we're moving on to the smaller exercises, and we only have 2 left, which is going to be farmer holds and then planks. So we rack these weights, and then we're going to be moving on to the farmer holds. So in this exercise, the farmer hold, what you're really going to be concentrating on is gripping the dumbbell as hard as you can, but also slightly elevating your traps to get the full benefit of this exercise, because of course it is not only working on your grip strength, but it's also working on your traps. It's a lot to it, even though it's really just a static hold, but you really start it feeling the burn and feeling it working, especially after those 60 seconds. That was 3 sets of 60 seconds for the farmer holds. So what's next? We have planks. Now we're doing 3 sets of 60-second holds on the planks as well. So very similar to farmer holds. It's a hold static position. It's an isometric contraction. So planks are very boring. Get through them real quick, and damn, we're almost done with day 1. So we got the timer going, 60 seconds. We're gonna do 3 sets of these, and that's it. Day 1 is done. And I gotta be honest, this felt damn good. You know, it's tough, but it was definitely doable, and I'm looking forward to doing 3 more weeks of this in stage 1 of the strength stage, and then moving on from there. So thanks for joining us for this workout, and until next time, stay buff. Ooh. Problem is I couldn't flex when I'm doing planks, so the stay buff didn't really work, but I think you get the idea. Ooh. Oh yeah. Ooh. Stay buff. Yeah.